there are only 12 survivors in the US, still with us. In the early months of 1942, the tranquil shores of Hawaii bore witness to a scene of unprecedented destruction. Pearl Harbor, once a symbol of American naval might, now lay in ruins. The Japanese Navy had executed a devastating surprise attack that caught the United States completely off guard. The scale of the devastation was staggering. Over 2,000 Americans lost their lives that day, with the Pacific Fleet reduced to a tangled wreckage of half-sunken battleships. Japanese reports claim 21 American ships were destroyed beyond repair, heralding a decisive victory that would change the course of the war. But this was far from the end of the story. What followed was an extraordinary salvage operation that would become a testament to human determination and engineering prowess. Dive teams and engineers faced nearly impossible challenges, working inside damaged ship hulls, surrounded by toxic gases and twisted metal, all while honoring the memory of their fallen comrades. The attack wasn't entirely unexpected. Isoku Yamamoto, the Japanese fleet commander who had previously served in Washington, had been carefully planning a strategic strike. His goal was to cripple the US Pacific Fleet, clearing the way for Japanese expansion into the Philippines and East Indies. Prior to the attack, the two countries had maintained a relatively cordial relationship. But on that fateful day, hundreds of Japanese fighters and bombers descended on Pearl Harbor in a meticulously planned assault. The result was a military catastrophe that would be remembered for generations. Against all odds, the salvage teams would ultimately prove the Japanese reports wrong. Nearly all of the damaged ships would be repaired and returned to service, a remarkable achievement that would become one of the most incredible salvage missions in military history. Public sentiment in America before World War II strongly favored avoiding military conflicts. After the First World War, 70% of Americans believed their involvement was a mistake, and by 1940, 60% wanted to stay out of the ongoing global fight. Admiral Yamamoto's strategy hinged on a decisive strike that would cripple American military morale and potentially knock the US out of the war completely. On a clear sunny Sunday morning of December 7, 1941, the peace at Pearl Harbor was about to be violently shattered. The attack unfolded with 350 Japanese aircraft descending from a cloudless sky. Their targets were strategic: naval installations, buildings, and most critically, the ships of the American Pacific Fleet. Most vessels were idle, moored peacefully in the harbor, with some undergoing maintenance in dry dock facilities. Bombs rained down, bracketing battleships and setting them ablaze. Destroyers were torn apart, with some losing entire bows. Within minutes, the tranquil scene transformed into a hellish landscape of roaring flames that seemed to reach hundreds of feet into the sky. The Japanese propaganda film celebrated the apparent victory, showcasing destroyed ships. However, a critical miscalculation remained hidden. The three most important aircraft carriers were mysteriously absent, having been out at sea and thus untouched by the assault. Despite missing the carriers, the Japanese planners must have been encouraged by the sight of nearly 24 wrecked, burning and half-sunken ships. The port still smouldering, the US Navy faced an enormous challenge of rescue and salvage. The Ford Island Air Base, situated in the harbor's center, had also been hit, adding to the comprehensive nature of the attack. The scale of destruction would require immediate and extensive recovery efforts. During the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States Navy suffered devastating losses. The northern shore of the island saw a mixed group of warships facing different fates. The USS Tungia, a C-3 class cargo ship, emerged unscathed. The USS Riley, a light cruiser, shot down 5 Japanese planes before taking a torpedo hit that caused her to list badly in the water. Despite the damage, she was quickly pumped dry and returned to action soon after. Another light cruiser, the USS Detroit, managed to get underway and take down several Japanese aircraft. Though she endured a few strafing passes that injured one man, she survived and set out with the cruisers Phoenix and St. Louis, along with 2 destroyers, to unsuccessfully hunt the Japanese attack force. The situation grew grimmer for the battleships. The massive Utah, a 23,000-ton steel vessel previously used for training, was struck by 2 torpedoes. She rapidly flooded and ultimately capsized, trapping dozens of men inside her hull. On Battleship Row, the southern shore of Ford Island, the scene was even more dire. The battleships here were aging dreadnoughts from the First World War, modernized over the years. The USS California, a Tennessee-class battleship, weighing 33,000 tons, was hit by 2 torpedoes and a bomb. She settled into the shallow harbor waters, with 100 men lost. Nearby, the USS Maryland, a Colorado-class battleship, was moored alongside the Oklahoma. The Japanese torpedo bombers concentrated their attack on the outboard battleships. Maryland took 2 bomb hits, killing 4 men, but survived with minimal flooding. The Japanese incorrectly believed she had been sunk. By the December 30th, she underwent repairs and modernization, returning to action by June 1942. The Oklahoma suffered a far worse fate. 2 torpedo hits destroyed large sections of her torpedo protection, and a third penetrated the hull, flooding her machinery spaces. Within just 10 minutes, the ship was in critical condition. 8 heavy hits slammed into her, forcing her to roll onto her side until her masts and superstructure settled into the harbor's silt. The toll was devastating. 429 men were killed. The battleships Tennessee and West Virginia, like Maryland and Colorado, were moored close together. Tennessee, a class-leading ship positioned inboard, miraculously avoided torpedo strikes. However, explosions from nearby vessels set her decks ablaze. Dive bombers then struck with 2 armor-piercing bombs, likely converted battleship shells, which punched through her decks and a turret roof. Critically, these bombs did not detonate within the main magazines. Burning oil from surrounding ships crept towards Tennessee's stern. Her crew responded by turning the propellers slowly ahead, pushing the flaming liquid away. She remained trapped, hemmed in by burning and sunken battleships. Outboard of Tennessee, West Virginia suffered far worse. The Colorado-class battleship absorbed 7 torpedo hits and 2 armor-piercing bombs. Her upper decks erupted in flames, and flooding began rapidly. Lieutenant Claude Ricketts became her savior, preventing her from capsizing and keeping her on an even keel. Fuel oil engulfed West Virginia, burning for an entire day. A nearby bomb blast from USS Tennessee killed her captain, with 106 crew members lost. Ricketts, the ship's gunnery officer, took decisive action when the vessel was hit. As he later described, the ship listed so severely that walking on the linoleum decks became nearly impossible. Reaching the 3rd deck, Ricketts gathered sailors to open counter-flood tanks. He instructed Rucker to flood the starboard side to level the ship. Despite having received no official orders, Rucker and Bobbitt opened valves to 2 additional compartments, gradually reducing the dangerous port side list. The USS Arizona, a Pennsylvania-class battleship, and the repair ship Vestal were the last 2 vessels on Battleship Row. Vestal was positioned outboard, providing maintenance, when 2 bombs intended for nearby battleships struck her. 1 bomb tore through 3 decks before exploding deep in her holds. Her crew had been working on anti-aircraft and deck guns. Meanwhile, USS Arizona was moored inboard next to Ford Island. While other battleships had survived relatively unscathed, Arizona's fate would be different. A converted armor-piercing bomb plunged through her decks, similar to what happened to Tennessee, but unlike Tennessee, these bombs detonated. Just 7 seconds later, a massive explosion erupted, with a plume of black smoke roaring through the ship's funnel. The blast was catastrophic. Arizona's main magazines detonated with such force that her bow was completely vaporized, showering debris across Ford Island and surrounding warships. Vestal's crew were blown overboard, her decks virtually cleared by the shockwave. Of the 1,512 men aboard Arizona, 177 were killed in less than a second. The ship quickly sank, coming to rest burning on the harbor's bottom, her superstructure and forward tower sagging into the water. USS Nevada, a leading battleship, was moored separately, which allowed her more mobility when the attack began. Hit by a torpedo, she managed to contain most flooding. As she attempted to escape, her damaged state and blazing anti-aircraft guns made her a prime target for Japanese aircraft. She was struck by 5 to 10 bombs, causing gas leaks and fires, yet still managed to shoot down 4 or 5 Japanese planes. Eventually, she beached herself near Hospital Point to prevent total sinking. South of Battleship Row, the dry docks, Navy Yard and district headquarters were located. Pennsylvania, Arizona's sister ship, sat in dry dock number 1, stern of the destroyers Cassin and Downs. On December 7th, the Japanese air attack turned Pearl Harbor into a scene of chaos and destruction. Torpedoes failed initially, but bombs struck with devastating accuracy. The destroyers Cassin and Downs caught fire, with flames quickly spreading to the battleship Pennsylvania. Dock workers desperately flooded the dry dock to contain the blaze, but explosions still ripped through the destroyer's magazines. The battleship, Pennsylvania, took a bomb hit but survived, eventually being repaired and returning to service within a month. However, Cassin and Downs remained wrecked and burning, locked together in the dry dock. Nearby, the USS Shaw met an even more horrific fate. Sitting in a floating dry dock, she absorbed 3 direct bomb hits that ignited her magazines, blowing her bow and forward superstructure completely off and sending her to the bottom. The explosion also badly damaged Umo, a harbour target ship that subsequently sank. In the surrounding area, the cruiser USS Helena and the mine layer Oglala were moored in Pennsylvania's usual berth. Originally a passenger cargo steamship from the early 1900s, Oglala had been converted to an auxiliary warship. The Japanese attackers, expecting to find the valuable battleship in this location, were surprised to discover it in the dry dock instead. A torpedo passed under Oglala and struck Helena's hull. While the cruiser survived, Oglala capsized after her hull was breached. Helena endured a bombing attempt, ultimately losing 26 crew members, but shooting down 6 Japanese aircraft. The American response was remarkable. Despite being caught completely off guard, the crews rapidly manned their stations, shooting down around 30 aircraft and damaging over 70 others. Yet the aftermath was devastating. The Pacific Fleet lay in complete disarray, a tangled mess of sunken, burning and damaged ships, with many sailors trapped alive within crushed steel hulls. A rescue mission became immediately necessary, followed by an extensive salvage operation to recover what remained of the fleet. Priority shifted to rescuing wounded men, many overwhelmed by the dense smoke and strong fumes. Suddenly, something chilling emerged from the capsized hulls of Oklahoma and Utah. Tapping sounds. Trapped sailors were signaling for help, banging tools against the ship's interior. Deep within pitch-black compartments filled with dust and particles, crewmen tapped out urgent messages without confidence of rescue. Stephen Young, an Oklahoma sailor, later remembered they had no idea a rescue attempt was underway until the first air hammer sounds echoed at dawn. The next few days would be a claustrophobic waiting game of terror. Rescuers from the Naval Yard, armed with settling gas torches, used Morse code guidance from trapped men to attempt cutting through the ship. The challenge was immense. The hull's thickness reached up to 13.6 inches, making cutting virtually impossible. Thinner underside plating offered hope, but acetylene torches risked igniting the already hostile internal atmosphere. A mix of breathable air, cork insulation particles, gas fumes, and smoke. The situation worsened with nearly the entire ship's underside comprising potentially combustible fuel tanks. Instead, compressed air and manual tools became their primary method of breaking through hull plates. Fortunately, the working party possessed Oklahoma's general plans which guided their efforts. USS Maryland's commander, Captain Cranfelder, coordinated the complex rescue operation. Lines were rigged along the bottom, telephone communication established with the Maryland, and an air supply line quickly connected the two vessels. Teams removed strainers from main injections and overboard discharges, seeking engine room access. Through a small hull connection, contact was finally made with two men trapped in the evaporator pump room. From December 7th to 9th, Naval Yard workers undertook a dangerous rescue mission to free trapped sailors from sunken ships. Their goal was to cut access holes in ship hulls where the plating was thinnest, a task fraught with risk. One wrong cut could release trapped air, causing rapid flooding or potentially igniting fuel and starting a fatal fire. On the USS Oklahoma, workers from USS Riley used a torch to cut into the hull's lower section. They successfully rescued fireman John Vass, who had remained at his post, to keep the ship's lights burning. Over these 3 days, 32 men were freed from Oklahoma's depths, thanks to the leadership of Hawaiian civilian worker Julio De Castro. Most of these survivors were found in critical areas like the radio room, after steering room, evaporator pump room, and number 4 turret's ammunition handling room. An air pocket within the ship's underside had kept them alive. However, many sailors were not as lucky. Those trapped in sections with thicker plating had no chance of escape. The USS West Virginia presented similar challenges. With the ship half sunk, its thick belt armor made rescue attempts nearly impossible. 3 men were trapped deep within its hull, tapping out desperate pleas for help. For days and weeks, sailors heard these haunting sounds, continuing through the night, gradually growing weaker until they finally stopped. Divers could have attempted to cut through from above, but after a near-fatal incident on the Arizona, such operations were forbidden. When the rescue mission concluded, the grim reality became clear. 2,343 people had been killed or were missing. The aftermath of Pearl Harbor left Pacific Fleet warships scattered, burnt out, and capsized. Yet within a week of the attack, salvage operations were underway. The Navy was determined to restore these damaged vessels and answer the Japanese challenge. Commander James M. Steele, former skipper of USS Utah, was appointed to lead the salvage division. Their headquarters? A simple waterfront shack. But from this modest base, an ambitious plan took shape. The strategy involved a detailed, collaborative approach that brought together all Navy branches and specialized personnel. Each damaged or sunken warship received a dedicated project officer, with additional specialist officers overseeing specific tasks. Some managed diving operations, others handled munitions removal, and some focused on additional ordnance requirements. The Navy recognized it couldn't tackle this challenge alone and welcomed civilian expertise, particularly from companies like Pacific Bridge Company, which had extensive experience with underwater concrete structures. Their first priority was unexpected but crucial. With the possibility of another Japanese attack looming, the salvage team needed to bolster anti-air defenses. Battleships in the harbor were laden with submerged anti-aircraft guns, presenting an immediate opportunity. Divers in heavy helmet suits, supported by teams operating compressor pumps providing fresh air, meticulously unbolted gun mounts, and retrieved hundreds of rounds of ammunition from ready lockers and magazines. Simultaneously, the division began planning the more complex task of repairing and refloating the damaged warships. Their approach would involve a strategic salvage triage, prioritizing vessels based on potential for restoration and strategic importance. The work was challenging, but the resolve was unwavering to recover, repair, and return these ships to active service. The salvage division faced a massive challenge in the wake of the Pearl Harbor attack. With the Pacific Fleet's pride lying battered and broken, each battleship weighing around 30,000 tons, the task of patching, refloating, and repairing seemed nearly impossible. USS Pennsylvania was first considered for salvage. Found in the dry dock with destroyers Cassine and Downs, she had survived with minor fire and bomb damage. Workers realigned her propeller shafts and screws, removing damaged anti-aircraft and secondary batteries. These were replaced with components from the more seriously damaged USS West Virginia. Naval Yard workers quickly addressed the superficial shell damage and splintering. By the December 20th, Pennsylvania was ready to make steam and set out for San Francisco. After more permanent repairs, she was prepared for training and action by January the 12th, 1942. Just over a month after the devastating attack, Helena, a cruiser, was moored in Pennsylvania's place next to the capsized auxiliary warship Oglala. Pearl Harbor's No. 2 dry dock, though new and incomplete, was rapidly prepared by the Pacific Bridge Company. Helena became the first ship to enter this dock. The torpedo that had blown out her side and capsized Oglala left a significant hole, which was patched with welded steel plates and a new pumping system to handle potential water ingress. On January the 5th, Helena departed for permanent repairs at Mare Island Navy Yard in California. By July the 4th, 1942, the cruiser was fully restored and ready for training and combat. The scene was somber. Weeks after the Japanese attack, men saluted their fallen comrades. Hundreds remained trapped inside the upturned USS Oklahoma, with no hope of escape. For days and weeks, rescuers had tried to block out the haunting sounds of tapping from deep within the wreck. With the less damaged ships cleared, the Salvage Division turned its attention to Battleship Row, preparing for the Herculean task ahead. After the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, a monumental challenge lay ahead. The harbor floor was now home to over 122,600 tons of sunken battleship wreckage. 4 ships were completely sunk, and 4 more suffered significant damage. The scene was catastrophic. Arizona's magazine had exploded in a terrifying fireball, killing over 100 sailors. Oklahoma had been torpedoed so badly that she rolled completely over, her propellers pointing skyward. Nevada had heroically attempted to fight back, shooting down aircraft before being bombed and left smoking on the shore. Smaller vessels fared no better. USS Shore was virtually dismembered, with her bow section obliterated. Casson and Downs were destroyed by bombs and fire. The mine layer Oglala capsized at the wharf after a torpedo detonated near the cruiser Helena. Naval facilities were in ruins. Hangars collapsed, aircraft burned, and the entire base was in chaos. The United States military knew immediate action was crucial. They implemented a systematic response to this unexpected attack. A triage system was quickly established to prioritize ship salvage efforts. Captain Homer M. Wallen took command of the operation in January 1942, facing the enormous task of rebuilding the Pacific Fleet. Specialized teams were assembled. Officers were assigned as project directors, with experts designated for specific tasks like diving and ammunition handling. The Salvage Division began its intricate work, starting with less damaged vessels. USS Pennsylvania, relatively unscathed, was able to steam out under her own power. Pearl Harbor, once a quiet naval outpost, had been transformed overnight into the epicenter of a brewing global conflict. The massive cleanup and recovery operation was underway, signaling the United States' determination to respond and rebuild. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the US Navy began the massive task of salvaging damaged ships. Among the first to receive attention were the cruisers, Honolulu and Helena. As repair efforts progressed, the Pacific Bridge Company rushed to complete a new dry dock, allowing crews to address the most severely wounded warships. The USS Maryland tells a remarkable story of survival. Moored inboard of Oklahoma, the ship had been shielded from torpedo attacks but became a target for dive bombers instead. 2 15-in armor-piercing bombs, possibly converted from battleship shells, tore through her steel deck plates. Unlike the Arizona, her magazines didn't explode, but the damage was severe. A massive hole ripped through her deck, and flooding in the bow caused the ship to drop about 5 feet in the water. Japanese pilots mistakenly reported Maryland as sunk. In reality, the ship's damage control teams had contained both fire and flooding, even helping other burning vessels nearby. However, Maryland faced a significant challenge. She couldn't return to the mainland, and Pearl Harbor lacked a dry dock large enough to accommodate her. The Navy's solution was ingenious. They constructed a watertight chamber, or caisson, around the bomb-damaged hull. Once welded in place, this chamber allowed crews to pump out the forward compartments and patch the hole. Just 23 days after the attack, Maryland set out for Puget Sound, Washington. Within 2 months, she was back at sea and ready for combat. The ship would prove the Japanese wrong throughout the war. Maryland became a formidable threat, bombarding Japanese positions at Tarawa, Kwajalein, Atoll, Saipan, Leyte, and Okinawa. What had seemed like a devastating blow at Pearl Harbor became a story of resilience and recovery. Next on the salvage team's list was USS Tennessee. Like Maryland, she had been moored closer to the shoreline and spared from torpedo attacks. But she too would face her own challenges in the aftermath of the surprise attack. During the attack on Pearl Harbor, Tennessee found herself in a dire situation, trapped between her fleetmate West Virginia and the massive battleship mooring keys. She was bombarded from above. Bombs rained down, cutting through her decks and plating, though many seemed to have little impact or failed to detonate. West Virginia suffered extensive damage, catching fire and sinking to the bottom. This forced Tennessee against the mooring keys, rendering her immobile. As burning oil spread from nearby ships, the crew took a creative approach, running the ship's engines slowly to fan the flames away. Despite their efforts, Tennessee remained firmly stuck, her mooring lines slack. The situation grew more desperate when Arizona exploded, raining debris and fire across Tennessee's decks. Anticipating the worst, her crew flooded the magazines. The heat was intense, causing the ship's stern plates to buckle and rivets to loosen. Through extraordinary effort, the crew managed to contain the fires aboard, though oil continued to burn on the water's surface for 2 days. Penned in by damaged ships, Tennessee had to wait until Maryland could be moved. Like a complex puzzle, her eventual escape required significant intervention. First, nearly 650,000 gallons of fuel oil were pumped out to lighten the ship, but she still wouldn't move. It became clear that the massive concrete mooring keys would need to be destroyed. The Pacific Bridge Company, with their expertise in bridge construction, took on the challenging task. On December 16th, they used dynamite to blast the keys apart. Finally freed, Tennessee nimbly navigated between the damaged West Virginia and Oklahoma. Navy Yard workers patched her ruptured hull plates and sent her in a convoy with Maryland and Pennsylvania to Puget Sound for extensive repairs, eventually returning her to active service. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, salvage operations began with mixed results. Some ships would be easier to recover than others. Among the battleships, the situation looked grim. Arizona, Oklahoma, and Utah were so badly damaged that they were clearly beyond repair. 2 ships offered potential for salvage: USS California, which had sunk at her moorings, and USS Nevada, which had been bombed and beached in the sand. Nevada's condition was particularly dire, with many experts arguing she couldn't be saved at all. Salvaging her would be an enormous challenge. The salvage division temporarily shifted focus from the large battleships to smaller vessels scattered throughout Pearl Harbor. Their strategy was to repair smaller craft first, hoping this might ultimately help them reflate the massive battleships. USS Vestal emerged as a prime candidate for repair, given her status as a repair ship with significant potential ongoing utility. Vestal's story was particularly dramatic. She had been alongside Arizona when the battleship exploded, with firefighting parties on her decks literally blown away by the blast's immense force. Conventional bombs had also struck her. One detonated in a metal storeroom, without serious consequence, but another pierced through the ship, causing significant flooding. As Arizona burned and Vestal settled by the stern, immediate action was necessary. Captain Cassin Young, who had been blasted off the ship during the initial explosion, heroically swam back and took command. His famous declaration, "Lads, we're getting this ship underway," galvanized the crew. They cut the ship's lines with axes as burning fuel oil crept closer, and with engines turning slowly, Vestal limped away. Young ultimately decided to beach the ship at Aya Bay, a decision that saved both vessel and crew. His extraordinary leadership was recognized with the Medal of Honor, a testament to the day's remarkable acts of courage and survival amid overwhelming destruction. The USS Vestal, despite being the most severely damaged ship during the attack, never sank. Her crew immediately began helping other wounded ships in Battleship Row, rescuing trapped men from Oklahoma and elsewhere. Only after assisting others did they turn their attention to their own vessel. Vestal's crew were skilled ship repairers. They worked with remarkable efficiency, cutting away ruined steel and welding new plates. Within a week, they had patched all holes, pumped out flooded compartments, and sealed damaged bulkheads. Their swift work allowed Navy Yard teams to focus on other ships. Eventually, Vestal needed comprehensive underwater repairs. Being a smaller vessel, she easily fit into the harbor's dry docks. By February 18, 1942, she was fully repaired and would go on to provide critical support throughout the Pacific campaign. Her assistance proved invaluable, not just during enemy engagements, but also in the face of devastating Pacific typhoons that could tear steel like paper. Nearby, the USS Raleigh, an older Omaha-class cruiser, was moored close to the USS Utah near the aircraft carriers. When Japanese planes unexpectedly attacked, both ships were caught in the onslaught. Utah was completely destroyed, rolling over from the assault. Raleigh's crew faced a brutal attack. 2 torpedoes struck first, causing significant flooding and causing the ship to list. A direct bomb hit followed, piercing through the ship and exploding beneath her keel. As the ship began to lift, her crew sprang into action. Some worked to redistribute weight to prevent capsizing, while others manned anti-aircraft guns, shooting down 5 enemy planes. Skillful counter-flooding techniques helped stabilize the ship's list. A barge was brought alongside to prevent complete sinking. Critically, the tanks of aviation fuel remained intact, averting a potential catastrophic fire. Remarkably, no crew members were lost during this intense battle. The Raleigh's crew had performed heroically, managing to keep their ship afloat through quick thinking and coordinated effort. Their actions earned them high praise and accommodation, much like other lightly damaged ships that survived the attack. Repairs were a massive undertaking in the aftermath of Pearl Harbor. Most damaged ships could be fixed by their own crews, working alongside repair ships and tenders. USS Riley, for example, was patched up quickly and entered the Navy Yard dry dock on December 22nd, returning to San Francisco for a full overhaul by February. The Pacific Fleet's resilience was evident as ships continued to fight. The seaplane tender Curtis, which had engaged a Japanese submarine and accidentally brought down an enemy aircraft after a crane collision, finally completed repairs by May 1942. USS Helm, a destroyer, exemplified this spirit. Despite being attacked by dive bombers and suffering significant damage from a bomb blast that ruptured her plating and caused flooding, she was back in action swiftly. The Pacific Bridge Company, Navy personnel, and Navy Yard workers were making remarkable progress, yet the sheer scale of destruction was impossible to ignore. As ships passed through Pearl Harbor's entrance, they were confronted by haunting reminders of the attack. The burnt-out hulks of USS Nevada, California, Oklahoma, and Arizona. Once sources of pride, these massive ships now symbolized the devastating losses. Some vessels were considered total losses. The destroyers Shaw, Kassan, and Downs, along with the small vessel Oglala, were officially written off. Battleships California and West Virginia seemed beyond salvation, initially deemed too damaged to ever fight again. However, the Salvage Division, recently renamed the Pearl Harbor Repair and Salvage Unit, was about to perform what would later be considered miraculous recoveries. The old girl, USS Riley, lived to fight another day, bombarding shore positions and enemy merchant ships throughout the Pacific. USS Shaw was another vessel thought to be completely destroyed, yet fate had other plans. The repair teams were about to prove that with determination and skill, even the most severely damaged ships could return from the brink of destruction. USS Shaw's story is one of remarkable resilience and naval ingenuity. During the Pearl Harbor attack, she suffered devastating damage while at a floating dry dock, taking 3 direct bomb hits that sparked uncontrollable fires. By 9:30 a.m., her forward ammunition magazines exploded in a blinding flash, completely destroying everything forward of her first funnel. The ship's bow sank with the flooding dry dock, but her stern section miraculously remained afloat. This surviving section sparked an innovative repair strategy. Navy Yard workers decided to cut off the destroyed bow and attach a temporary fake bow, enabling the ship to sail under her own power to the west coast for permanent repairs. Steering became an ingenious workaround. With the bridge obliterated, officers created a simple platform atop the tripod mast for navigation, while emergency after steering compartments near the rudder provided basic control. By January's end, the new bow was fitted, and Shaw was prepared for her extraordinary journey. When she left the harbour, cheering crews witnessed what seemed like a ship resurrected from the grave. Her voyage symbolised hope and determination. By summer, Shaw was fully rebuilt, and in August, less than a year after the attack, she returned to Pearl Harbor looking pristine, receiving a warm welcome. While Shaw's recovery inspired salvage crews, not all ships could be saved. Destroyers like Cassine and Downes suffered more catastrophic damage. Cassine's hull and keel were warped upwards by 17 inches, while Downes was twisted with her bow high and stern low. Some damage simply proved beyond repair. The salvage teams, divers, riveters, and carpenters demonstrated incredible skill, but they also understood the limits of their craft. USS Shaw represented a best-case scenario, a testament to naval engineering and human perseverance in the face of overwhelming destruction. Pumps, cutters, and plugs were hard at work in the aftermath of the attack. Cassine and Downes' spirits seemed to hang in the balance initially. Would they survive like Shaw had? Intense discussions explored their future viability. Even with repairs, these destroyers would likely only manage low-impact escort work or basic patrols. Ship hulls from that era were surprisingly straightforward and affordable to construct. The real complexity and expense lay in engineering machinery. Thorough inspections revealed the ship's engines remained in excellent condition. Naval leadership ultimately decided to scrap the vessels, but preserve their intricate machinery for future destroyers. Over 1,000 tons of equipment, pumps, turbines, fans, and countless components were meticulously removed, restored, and catalogued. Most original hulls were dismantled throughout 1942, and by early 1944, new ships bearing the same names emerged. Remarkably, 37-ton stone sections with original nameplates were ceremoniously grafted onto these new vessels. Both ships would go on to distinguish themselves, earning numerous battle stars and medals against the very enemy that had originally sent them to the harbour's bottom in December 1941. Meanwhile, the Pearl Harbor Repair and Salvage Unit faced its most monumental challenge: 6 sunken or beached battleships of staggering proportions. Nevada stood out as the first salvage candidate. Beached at Hospital Point, she presented a different scenario from her devastated peers. Unlike the shattered Arizona or overturned Oklahoma and Utah, Nevada had fought ferociously. A torpedo strike couldn't stop her initial escape, and she'd weathered 5 simultaneous bomb hits that ravaged her superstructure. Intentionally grounded to prevent complete sinking, Nevada rested with her bow submerged and stern touching shore. Her normal draft of 28 feet was now dwarfed, with water rising nearly 2 stories higher. The damage was nothing short of extraordinary. Captain Homer Wallen's salvage team faced an enormous challenge with Nevada. The ship's photographs revealed a vessel devastated by bombs and fire, bent and buckled beyond what seemed repairable. Despite the overwhelming destruction that even Admiral Chester Nimitz believed made the ship a total loss, Wallen remained hopeful. The ship's initial position after the attack was crucial. Nevada had settled with her stern resting on the bottom, slightly listing to starboard, a position that actually worked in the salvage crew's favour. By anchoring her precisely, they prevented the risk of her drifting into deeper waters and blocking the channel. Early 1942 marked the beginning of their most challenging salvage operation. The repair strategy involved multiple approaches. Wooden patches were bolted over forward hull bomb damage, with water pressure itself helping to hold them in place. More complex hull damage required specialised intervention. Skilled divers, some of the world's best, undertook incredibly dangerous work. Drawn from the Pacific Bridge Company, support vessels, the Destroyer Rapid Repair Unit, and even Nevada's own crew, they worked in hard hat diving suits. Welding holes and repairing ruptured plate seams, they knew the risks were extreme. One wrong move could send a diver overboard, where water pressure could crush a body in an instant. Wallen believed Nevada's older reciprocating steam engines would be easier to salvage compared to more modern turbine-electric machinery. This gave him additional confidence. Over 400 successful dives and 1,500 hours of work would prove whether his optimism was justified. The salvage of the Nevada was an intricate operation marked by numerous challenges. Underwater tasks like cutting, drilling, excavating, and dynamiting were performed without losing a single diver. The most significant hurdle was a massive torpedo hole that needed patching, approximately 48 ounce 25 ft in size. Matching the patch proved extraordinarily difficult due to the complex hull curvature where a torpedo bulge was installed. The Oklahoma, an almost identical sister ship that had overturned, presented an unexpected solution by providing a perfect template. Initially, the crew crafted a patch designed to fit Oklahoma, assuming it would work for Nevada. However, the patch proved too unwieldy, even for the most skilled salvage teams. Despite a month of persistent efforts, divers struggled to seat the patch correctly. An unknown obstacle, a hull projection blown out during the explosion, was silently preventing proper placement and sealing. Ultimately, the team decided to leave the large hole, instead reinforcing internal bulkheads to prevent widespread flooding during the ship's refloating. Preparation involved removing all remaining oil, guns, munitions, and heavy equipment to reduce weight and improve maneuverability. The pumping process was delicate and complex. Draining compartments required meticulous coordination to prevent capsizing. Hoses connected to various suction pumps created an intricate network as Nevada slowly rose, water cascading over her sides. After nearly 3 months underwater, teams entered the compartments to clear out contaminants. What they discovered was gruesome, a thick, putrid stew coating surfaces, rancid meat stores, and in some spaces, the tragic remains of fallen sailors. The scene was a grim testament to the ship's violent past and the challenges of salvage. The Navy hospital received bodies that were decomposed and needed identification, marking the beginning of a challenging salvage operation. On February 7th, Lieutenant James Clarkson and a machinist mate met a tragic fate in the confined steering engine room, overcome by deadly gases. Analysis revealed hydrogen sulfide, an odorless gas produced by decaying organic material in water, was responsible for their deaths. These losses were a stark reminder of the uncharted territory the salvage team was navigating. Despite the blow, their determination remained unbroken. They implemented crucial safety measures, rigorous water gas testing, protective gear including rubber boots, overalls, and breathing apparatus. Portable fan units and makeshift lighting helped them work inside the refloated ship, hosing away oil and grime. Surprisingly, the ship's wiring was in good condition and merely needed drying. The team's secret weapon was Tectiol, a rust-preventative substance that dried components and applied a protective film. This breakthrough allowed them to salvage approximately 95% of Nevada's original electrical machinery. Their meticulous work paid off. On February 12, 1942, the salvage unit celebrated as Nevada floated again. Chester Nimitz would have been impressed by the sight of the ship preparing for dry docking. a delicate process where breaking lines could spell disaster. The team's pride was palpable, a testament to their weeks of hard work and resilience. The small boats wrestled Nevada into dry dock, number 2, the only dock large enough for a ship of her size. Nimitz watched proudly, having previously believed the battleship was a complete write-off. Against all odds, the naval yard workers transformed the hulking wreck into a functioning warship. The extent of damage became clear once Nevada was in dry dock. Divers had struggled to patch the massive bomb holes, which were now meticulously repaired. By April 22nd, less than 5 months after the attack, Nevada steamed out under her own power in a convoy headed to Puget Sound Navy Yard. By October, the ship had been completely rebuilt. She emerged as a formidable, modernized battleship crewed by sailors hungry for vengeance. Nevada first supported fire during D-Day in the European theatre before returning to the Pacific. During the invasion of Iwo Jima, she anchored just 500 meters offshore, her massive guns hurling shell after shell at the enemy. This was a triumphant moment for a warship once considered doomed. The 52 men who had fallen could now be avenged as Nevada's guns roared with flame and fury. The USS California occupied berth F3 at the front of Battleship Row on that fateful December morning. While her distant position offered some protection from potential magazine explosions like the Arizona's, it also made her an immediate target for Japanese aircraft. At approximately 8:05 a.m., 2 torpedoes struck California's portside, marking the beginning of her devastating morning. California was caught completely vulnerable during the Pearl Harbor attack due to a critical military protocol known as Condition X-ray. This procedure, typically used before inspections, required watertight compartments and manholes to remain open for easier crew movement. On December 7th, the battleship had no time to transition to a more secure defensive stance. 2 torpedo impacts struck devastating blows, one near a bridge and another beneath turret number 3. These hits ripped massive holes in the ship's hull, exposing her to the sea. Normally, watertight subdivisioning would have prevented catastrophic flooding, but California's internal defenses were neutralized by the open compartments. The crew responded with extraordinary courage. They immediately rushed to battle stations, breaking out ammunition and engaging the attacking aircraft with 50 caliber machine guns and 5-inch anti-aircraft guns. Their valiant efforts seemed momentarily promising as they hurled ordnance into the air, desperately trying to protect their ship. However, their resistance was quickly undermined by mechanical failures. The torpedo impacts and subsequent flooding contaminated the fuel lines, knocking out the ship's power. This meant the topside 5-inch gun hoist became inoperable, leaving gunners with almost no ability to counter the relentless Japanese bomber formations. The situation was heartbreakingly frustrating. The crew had the resolve and initial firepower, but rapidly depleting resources. Quick-thinking officers prevented total disaster by ordering counter-flooding, which stabilized the listing ship and prevented immediate capsizing. Despite this tactical maneuver, fresh bomber waves continued to threaten California's survival, creating a dire and precarious situation for the battleship and her brave crew. California's fight during the Pearl Harbor attack was brutal and heroic. In the chaotic moments after the initial torpedo strike, the battleship faced relentless bombardment. Bombs and near misses battered her hull, causing uncontrollable flooding through open compartments. Just after 8:45 a.m., a devastating blow struck. A massive bomb weighing over 770 kilo, modified from a naval shell, punched through the midship deck. The explosion was catastrophic, instantly killing 50 crew members and detonating an anti-aircraft ammunition magazine. Uncontrollable fires spread rapidly, made worse by the loss of power that rendered firefighting equipment useless. Amid the destruction, extraordinary acts of courage emerged. 3 Medal of Honor recipients would be recognized, though 2 would be awarded posthumously. Robert R. Scott, a machinist's mate, embodied unwavering dedication. As seawater and oil flooded his air compressor room, he refused to abandon his post. "This is my station," he declared. and I'll stay and give them air as long as the guns are going." The rising water eventually claimed his life. Ensign Herbert C. Jones displayed remarkable heroism. He rescued sailors from smoke-filled corridors and then took command of a 5-inch anti-aircraft gun. When power failed the ammunition hoists, Jones organised men to manually haul 55-pound shells from the magazines to the guns. A devastating bomb wound would prove fatal, but not before he warned his comrades to flee moments before a massive magazine explosion. Gunner Jackson C. Ferris became the sole Medal of Honor recipient from California to survive the attack, having been en route to his position during the chaos. Torpedoes struck the ship with brutal force, slamming Ferris into the overhead ceiling. The impact left him dazed and in intense pain, but he refused to give up. Fighting through his injuries, he worked tirelessly to pass ammunition to the gun, organising a human chain to move ordnance from the magazine. When the order came to counter flood, Ferris took charge. He rallied his fellow sailors and ensured the critical orders were carried out. Smoke and choking fumes knocked him unconscious twice, yet each time he regained his senses and resumed his critical mission. He continued supplying ammunition to the topside crew, while braving the rapidly flooding compartments to save his shipmates. Inside those claustrophobic steel spaces, every instinct screamed to escape and save oneself. But Ferris and his comrades remained focused, ultimately saving hundreds of lives through their extraordinary courage. Despite their heroic efforts, California was in desperate condition. Fires spread rapidly, and her hull was perforated, flooding uncontrollably. The situation worsened as burning fuel oil crept along the water's surface from Battleship Row. Thick, noxious black smoke billowed into the air, choking the brave men still on California's deck. Flames from ruptured hulls threatened to engulf them completely. Surrounded by fires and with their ship sinking, the crew was forced to abandon California and seek safety on Ford Island. The scene that greeted them was horrific. Vast plumes of smoke rising from a sea of burning oil, fellow sailors fighting for survival amidst unimaginable carnage. No time for reflection, the men quickly gathered firefighting equipment, determined to save their battered ship. But it was too late. California had already listed 8 degreemers and was gradually settling into the muddy harbour bottom. Recovery would be a massive undertaking. The ship had sustained even more substantial damage than first realised. In the aftermath of the attack, California rested in deeper waters than Nevada, submerged nearly 47 ft or about 12 mils. Her charred and blackened superstructure seemed to emerge almost mysteriously from the water, her hull bearing 2 torpedo holes and significant damage from near misses. Salvage teams faced an enormous challenge. Inspection revealed that the water surrounding her hull posed the greatest threat to recovery. They would need to hold Pearl Harbor itself at bay and achieve what seemed like a minor miracle. With time not on their side, engineers developed an ingenious solution. Using 4-in-thick wooden boards and sturdy angle iron, they constructed massive cofferdams around California's hull. These dams, anchored to the ship's shear line, acted as a vertical extension of the hull itself, essentially creating a wooden wall that kept water off the deck. 2 structures were built, one for the stern section and another arguably more critical, enclosing the bow that had been blown open by near misses. However, these impressive cofferdams presented significant challenges. The wooden materials were inherently buoyant, making installation difficult for divers wearing clumsy helmet suits and working through oil-sheened waters. Moreover, there was a serious risk that pumping efforts to dewater the decks might cause the surrounding seawater to press against the unsupported interior of the dams, potentially causing a catastrophic collapse and reflooding. To mitigate this risk, heavy-duty timber braces, similar to those used when launching ships, were added to the dam interiors. These would help withstand the immense pressure and prevent structural failure, offering a lifeline to the damaged battleship. The massive damage to the California demanded an innovative repair strategy that went far beyond standard naval procedures. Her hull had been brutally torn open by torpedo and bomb, creating a gaping wound nearly 40 feet long and 10 feet tall below the waterline. Unlike the Nevada, simply sealing her watertight compartments and pumping out water wasn't an option. Drawing from the successful cofferdam approach used on the ship's topside, naval engineers developed an ingenious solution: enormous wooden patches that would function like oversized bandages. Each patch was constructed from 4-inch thick wood planks and angle iron, carefully crafted to match the precise curvature of the ship's hull. Massive floating cranes transported these 16-foot sections from Pearl Harbor's cold dock, where skilled carpenters had meticulously prepared them. The installation process was incredibly complex and demanding. Divers first had to cut away twisted metal fragments caused by the explosions, then drill precise holes to mount heavy-duty bolts capable of supporting the patch's substantial weight. But their most challenging task came next: navigating the ship's flooded, maze-like interior to secure nuts on the opposite end of each bolt, ensuring the patch held firmly against the hull. Lowering these patches required additional technical skill. Workers sank them using heavy lead weights to counteract the wood's natural buoyancy, then carefully bolted them into place along California's ravaged side. Each patch extended well above the waterline, providing a robust seal against further water intrusion. This extraordinary repair method represented more than just technical prowess. It was a testament to the determination and ingenuity of the naval repair teams working tirelessly to return the crippled warship to service. Black passages, barely lit by the men's lights, revealed the immense danger of their task. But for these men, abandoning the ship or breaking her up was unthinkable. The battleships of Pearl Harbor, particularly California, were cherished vessels that instilled deep pride in every Pacific Fleet serviceman. Seeing them burnt, bent, broken, and sunk only strengthened their resolve to restore these proud ships. The challenge of refloating California demanded extraordinary solutions. Sealing the hull's patches required more than simple nut and bolt arrangements. Instead, they devised an ingenious method using long, thin canvas sacks filled with oakum, hemp or jute fiber soaked in pitch. Once packed and soaked in water, these flexible materials earned the nickname pudding for their malleability, though some men joked they looked more like sausages. Ironically, the water that initially threatened their efforts now worked in their favor. When wedged between the hull and timber, the water's weight pressed the oakum sacks firmly into the gaps, creating a watertight seal. Admiral William Furlong was so impressed he compared the technique to a mason jar's rubber gasket. With patches bolted and gaps sealed, divers faced another critical challenge. They needed to brace the interior of each patch to prevent collapse when water was pumped out. This meant traversing California's flooded interiors while dragging cumbersome timbers, heavy steel bracing, and necessary tools. The men knew that if the patches failed, the dreadnought would crash back to the bottom, undoing all their painstaking work. Their determination was unwavering. Each difficult passage, each risky maneuver, was driven by an unbreakable commitment to restore their beloved ship. They pressed onward, their bravery matching the magnitude of their task. Work to raise the California from her muddy grave was a 4-month ordeal of immense challenge and danger. Every possible step was taken to lighten the massive battleship before attempting to refloat her. Huge equipment came off first: main armament, thousands of ammunition rounds, and even towering basket masts were removed to reduce her weight. On March 21st, pumps began their critical task. Unlike the Nevada, California had settled in deeper water on an uneven seafloor. This complicated her recovery. As water was pumped out, the ship developed a terrifying 20 degrees list, making her ascent a nerve-wracking process that stretched across 3 agonizing days. Just when it seemed the ship was finally safe, disaster struck again. At 1:15 p.m. on April 5th, another explosion ripped through the vessel. The massive bow patch covering previous bomb damage blew out, allowing thousands of tons of seawater to rush back into the carefully cleared spaces. The ship lurched dramatically, her bow dipping dangerously back toward the water. The crew's lightning-fast response saved California from sinking again. They immediately rigged 2 pumps and sealed every possible watertight hatch and door. Their quick thinking prevented what could have been a catastrophic return to the ocean floor. The ship remained afloat, maintaining a draft shallow enough to enter dry dock. In the aftermath, suspicions of sabotage ran high. Pearl Harbor and the Pacific Fleet battleships were known prime targets for the Japanese. Even before the war, there had been fears about Hawaii's significance, population of ethnic Japanese potentially undermining American defenses. The USS California, now gently towed into dry dock number 2 on April 9, 1942, bore the scars of its harrowing Pearl Harbor experience. 2 pumps attached to her deck continued to pump water, struggling to keep the battleship's bow afloat. The initial fears of sabotage quickly dissipated after a thorough investigation revealed a different culprit for the significant explosion. The interior of the ship told a story of devastation. A volatile mixture of fuel oil vapor and hydrogen sulfide, generated from decomposing organic materials, had somehow found an ignition source, causing a powerful explosion that mangled deck beams and damaged bulkheads. Over 200,000 gallons of fuel oil had already been siphoned out, yet oil still clung to every surface from the 3rd deck up, while thick, gluey mud cemented itself around bomb and torpedo damage. The cleanup was a grueling process. Heaps of decomposing food, paper, clothing, and bodies needed removal. After 4 months of intense work by hundreds of men, only about half the ship had been reclaimed from the filth. Among the debris, personal stories emerged. L.B. Lukenbach, a band member, had left his sheet music behind during the chaotic evacuation. Months later, he was able to return and find his belongings, including a poignant score of Stars and Stripes Forever, a symbol of survival and resilience amidst the destruction. The salvage team's work was challenging, but they managed to keep the battleship just light enough to clear the dry dock entrance, marking a small victory in the ship's remarkable story of survival. Metal workers swarmed over the battleship's damaged hull, their hands moving quickly. Steel plating was cut, twisted sections removed, and new parts welded into place. Beams came out, got straightened, then went back in. Much of California's hull damage could be fixed simply by heating and reshaping the metal. Topside repairs ran alongside the hull work. Holes in the deck and superstructure were patched with new plating, but the ship's complex propulsion system posed a bigger challenge. Unlike Nevada's straightforward steam turbines, California used a turbo-electric setup, 4 electric motors powered by steam-driven generators. Months underwater in Pearl Harbor's salty water had taken their toll on these sophisticated machines. General Electric representatives stepped in to tackle the problem. 2 massive motors were completely rewound, requiring miles of carefully spooled copper wire. This would allow the battleship to make its way across the Pacific to Puget Sound for full machinery overhaul. The General Electric team described their rebuild as the largest such job ever attempted in the field. Meanwhile, dockyard workers stripped the ship's interior completely. Out went furniture, ventilation equipment, and every scrap of wiring. They prepared for modern replacements, leaving nothing untouched. Compartments that had been cleaned down to bare metal were repainted and restored. On June 7, 1942, USS California left Pearl Harbor's dry docks, bound for mainland repairs. By October 10th, she would depart fully restored, her 14-inch battery back in place. For those who had worked tirelessly to rebuild her, it must have been a moment of immense pride. The USS California emerged from Pearl Harbor in a cloak of secrecy, her fresh blue paint steaming out toward the open ocean. After being resurrected from near total destruction, she was a symbol of American naval resilience. The teams who had worked tirelessly to restore her felt immense pride as she sailed out, carefully avoiding detection by potential Japanese submarines or aircraft. By January 1944, after undergoing a complete transformation in dry dock, California was no longer the aging dreadnought she once was. She had been completely overhauled and modernized, now a lethal floating fortress. Her new dazzle paint scheme was, complemented by 40 brand new anti-aircraft buffers and numerous 20 Mittel and Oerlikon guns. Outdated basket masts were removed, and her armor significantly increased. Returning to the fleet in May, California quickly began exacting revenge. She unleashed her firepower at Saipan, Guam, and Tinian, striking hard against Japanese forces. Her most notable moment came on October 24, 1944, at the Battle of Surawa Strait. Alongside fellow Pearl Harbor survivors, Maryland, West Virginia, Tennessee, and the Mississippi, she helped sink Japanese battleships Fuso and Yamashiro, along with several destroyers. During this battle, California fired over 60 massive shells, critically damaging Yamashiro. The Mississippi's salvo would historically be the last time a battleship fired at another in combat. However, California's war was not without personal sacrifice. On January 6, 1945, while supporting the Philippines invasion, she was struck by a kamikaze attack. The explosion killed 44 crew members and wounded 155 others, forcing her to return to the United States for repairs. Undeterred, the battleship returned in time to support the final stages of the Okinawa campaign. After Japan's surrender, she played a crucial role in the American occupation, sailing triumphantly into the very waters of the enemy that had once nearly destroyed her. Now stronger and more deadly than ever, California symbolized resilience, transformation, and ultimate victory. The USS West Virginia found herself in a deadly predicament during the attack, moored directly in the firing line of Japanese Kate torpedo bombers alongside the Tennessee. Commander R.H. Hillcott, her most senior surviving officer, would later describe the shocking suddenness of the assault. At 07:55, the ship's world transformed in an instant. A Marine orderly burst into the commander's cabin, announcing, "The Japanese are attacking us." Mere seconds after the initial warning, heavy shocks rocked the vessel's hull. Two initial impacts struck somewhere on the port side, quickly followed by a third that set the plane's atop turret 3 ablaze. 7 Japanese torpedoes struck the mighty warship with devastating precision, tearing her side open as if it were thin aluminum foil. The hits were catastrophic. One would threaten to open her bow to the sea, while another risked blowing her rudder completely off the already sinking ship. Despite the horrific damage, the crew's spirit remained unbroken. As fires spread across the ship and surrounding waters, the West Virginia began to list at a terrifying angle. Yet her guns continued to thunder, hurling ordnance at the circling enemy planes. She stood as a protective shield for the Tennessee, absorbing blow after devastating blow. The battle left her the most severely damaged battleship to be salvaged. Each subsequent repair and recovery mission would become a crucial learning experience for the division, with the charred hulk of the West Virginia presenting a uniquely complex challenge. Though battered and wounded, the ship and her crew had demonstrated extraordinary resilience in the face of overwhelming attack. The list of the ship was growing increasingly severe, reaching an estimated 20 to 25 degrees to port. An explosion threw me flat against the deck, near turret 3 and the quarterdeck, where fire continued to rage. From the turret top, I learned the captain had already gone to the bridge. I attempted to contact Central via sound power telephone, instructing them to initiate counter-flooding. Though I was unsure if my message went through, Lieutenant Commander John S. Harper had already heard similar orders from Hillcott. His quick actions in starting counter-flooding likely prevented the ship from capsizing like the Oklahoma, which had rolled over from torpedo damage. Multiple bomb strikes wreaked havoc on the West Virginia. One projectile struck the foretop at the mainmast's peak, piercing through the unarmored section and potentially exploding on the second deck, tearing apart sections of the ship's superstructure. Another bomb hit the number 3 turret's armored roof, but miraculously failed to detonate, breaking up inside the turret and potentially averting a catastrophic magazine explosion. The surrounding oil fires from damaged fleetmates soon engulfed the battleship. Unlike Nevada and California, West Virginia found herself at the heart of the blaze. For 30 grueling hours, the dreadnought burned with such intensity that steel deck plating warped and buckled along 3/4 of her length. The heat was so extreme that even internal bulkheads deep within the hull sustained damage. Harper was ultimately forced to abandon his post only when rising water in his compartment made further resistance impossible. The brave officer's efforts, however, had already made a critical difference in the ship's survival. By the time of the attack, her tank was almost fully fueled at around 70% capacity. The damage. Control crews, despite their heroic efforts, couldn't contain the massive Inferno. Reluctantly, the order to abandon ship was given. Crew members and officers plunged into the oil-slicked water. Some swam to the neighboring Tennessee to help their fellow sailors, while others made their way to Fort Island to assist with fighting fires and tending to the wounded. Raising and recovering the ship would be a complex challenge. The salvage team, having already successfully worked on the Nevada and California, approached the task with hard-earned experience. Initial underwater hull inspections revealed extensive damage that would require more than the patches used on previous ships. Unlike the Nevada, which had been refloated without a major patch, the West Virginia's port side was catastrophically damaged. The team devised an ambitious salvage plan. A massive 150-foot patch would be constructed in sections to cover the most severe midship damage, with a smaller patch addressing the forward torpedo strike. The rudder damage was deemed manageable through watertight door and bulkhead isolation. Drawing from their work on the California, they chose to use the proven cofferdam patch method. Work crews began constructing 13 1-2-foot sections that could be weighted and positioned strategically. However, they quickly encountered a significant obstacle. The hull damage above the armoured belt was so extensive that there was insufficient material to bolt the massive coffarm in place. The salvage team for the West Virginia faced significant challenges when repairing the massive damage caused by multiple warhead explosions. The ship's hull was so badly twisted and mangled that traditional repair methods wouldn't suffice. Their innovative solution involved using heavy-duty 10-inch wide H-beams, which were bolted vertically to the warped but intact armoured belt, spaced every 8 feet. These vertical beams could then be braced horizontally, creating a sturdy frame for mounting large patch sections. The size of the main patch presented another unique problem. Unlike smaller torpedo hits that could be sealed with canvas sacks filled with pitch-soaked jute fibre known as puddings, this extensive damage required a different approach. Instead of using traditional methods, the team decided to seal the massive hole with concrete. They employed the tray method, which allows concrete to be poured underwater using vertical pipes. Over 650 tons of specially developed underwater concrete mix from the Pacific Bridge Company were poured to a depth of around 4 feet along the entire patch length, with Tremie pipes installed every 10 feet. Once the hull was sealed, the team focused on preparing the battleship for refloating. They removed massive amounts of fuel and other materials. 800,000 gallons of heavy fuel oil were pumped out, and an additional 40,000 gallons of loose oil were skimmed from the interior and decks. They also stripped ammunition, food stores, and fittings, and carefully extracted 2 unexploded Japanese bombs for evaluation. The food store's removal was particularly challenging. Thousands of pounds of beef and dairy products had been left to sit in oily salt water and bake in the heat, creating an incredibly unpleasant task for the salvage team. During months spent under the beating Hawaiian sun, divers had already descended into the horrid filth to prepare for salvage. They opened all of West Virginia's remaining intact internal doors, allowing clean seawater to circulate through the hull and clear out stagnant water and toxic gases. The recovery efforts revealed a heartbreaking scene. 66 bodies belonging to West Virginia's fallen crew were discovered and removed for burial, most in an advanced state of decomposition. Their remains were unrecognizable to their comrades after months trapped inside the ship. Evidence suggested that some men had survived for weeks, trapped within dark, flooded compartments. In the pitch-black spaces, they would have desperately pounded messages, begging for rescue. But tragically, no help could reach them. Many were found clinging to steam pipes near the engine room's top, where air pockets once existed. In total, 6 of West Virginia's men perished during the attack. On May 12, 1942, after months of exhausting and dangerous work, West Virginia began to rise from her watery grave. However, the recovery quickly revealed significant challenges. The water being pumped out was nearly equal to the amount flooding back in. Despite the massive cofferdams working as intended, the battleship's hull was severely damaged. The vessel's structure resembled Swiss cheese more than a proud warship. Loose rivets, small shrapnel holes, bursts and seams had compromised its integrity. Once again, gallant divers were sent down with tools to patch the numerous holes and tears in her side. 5 days later, on May 17th, the water levels within the battleship finally began to fall. As the pumping continued, a new concern emerged: the risk that the battleship might suddenly destabilize once fully refloated. The fate of West Virginia hung in a delicate balance. After the devastating attack, the battleship's damaged hull posed a constant threat of complete collapse. Her weight was dramatically uneven, with massive sections blasted away, creating an unstable condition that could send her plummeting back to the harbour bottom at any moment. Crews were acutely aware of the risks. A similar incident on California had shown how quickly things could go wrong. A mix of fuel vapour and toxic gas had ignited, but crews there managed to seal the damage and keep the ship afloat. For West Virginia, the stakes were even higher. If her giant patch suddenly failed, no heroic effort could prevent her from sinking. The situation was complicated by a critical shortage of dry dock space. California occupied Dry Dock 2 and couldn't be moved until repairs were complete, leaving West Virginia with nowhere to go. She was forced to sit idle, her fragile patches under immense water pressure. Even though the cofferdam was braced from the inside, the prolonged exposure to crushing sea forces caused serious concern. As a precautionary measure, teams took extensive steps to protect the ship. Spare patch sections were held on Pearl Harbor's massive floating cranes. Men were stationed aboard to operate sea valves for counter-flooding, hoping that if the hull breached, they could at least settle the ship evenly instead of a catastrophic roll like Oklahoma experienced. Nearly a month after the pumps were initially activated, June 1942 finally brought relief. West Virginia was towed into the safety of dry dock. Her sturdy cofferdams and bracing had successfully held back the sea, preventing the worst-case scenario. The reserve patches were never needed, a testament to the ship's resilience and the crew's careful management. The massive task of restoring the battleship's interior began with removing toxic buildup and thick oil. Despite significant sludge removal, vast amounts still clung to every surface. Skilled yardsmen worked diligently on the ruined hull, breathing life back into the old dreadnought. West Virginia, like California, was a turboelectric ship powered by 4 electric motors. These motors drew electricity from huge turbines, which were fed by steam from 8 massive Babcock and Wilcox oil-fired boilers. Miles of intricately wound copper wire filled these motors. After months submerged in Pearl Harbor's salty waters, these machines would require complete disassembly and precise rewinding. Fortunately, extensive salvage work had already removed substantial oil and debris from West Virginia's interior. This allowed work crews to retrieve sensitive machinery and equipment from the saltwater far earlier than on California. Before entering dry dock, preliminary steps were already completed. The massive generators and main propulsions, motors had been removed, and the engine room thoroughly cleaned. A generous application of Tectile rust preventative product ensured West Virginia's vital machinery was recovered in superior condition compared to California's. As this work progressed, the monumental task of rebuilding the dreadnought's shattered hull began. When water was gradually pumped from the dry dock, the true scale of destruction became apparent. Massive cofferdam sections removed revealed a gaping, twisted mass of rent and broken steel. Nearly the entire port side had been blown apart by Japanese torpedo hits. The ship's hefty 13.12-inch armoured belt was bent and cracked in multiple locations. Even areas untouched by bombs or torpedoes bore significant damage from the attack. After Pearl Harbor, the West Virginia underwent extensive repairs that took hundreds of skilled workers 3 months to complete. The raging fires that burnt unchecked for 30 hours had warped her hull and armour so severely that massive sections had to be cut away, straightened or replaced entirely. Once dry dock work was finished, she was moved to continue interior renovations. Workers stripped and renewed wiring, repainted walls and ceilings, and replaced all furniture and fittings. By May 1943, she was ready to sail under her own power to the Puget Sound Navy Yard in Bremerton, Washington, where she would receive final repairs and a comprehensive modernization. In July 1944, West Virginia emerged transformed, a far deadlier and more effective ship than before. She rejoined her Pacific Fleet comrades, playing crucial roles in battles at Morro, Leyte, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa, including fighting in the Battle of Surigao Strait. During these operations, a kamikaze struck her off Okinawa, but the damage was minor, and she continued her duties. As the war drew to a close, West Virginia supported massive occupation efforts. She then participated in Operation Magic Carpet, serving as a ferry to bring thousands of American veterans home to their families after years of brutal conflict. By 1947, after 24 years of distinguished service, she was decommissioned. In 1959, she met her final fate in the scrapyard, where yard workers completed the destruction that Japanese forces had never managed during the war. At this point, all battleships had been returned to service, with what remained essentially a graveyard of overturned vessels. At Battleship Row, the Oklahoma's upturned hull told a grim story of destruction. Her propellers stuck out helplessly from the water, while her superstructure lay smashed against the harbour bottom. This wreck would become the most challenging salvage operation, demanding the skills of America's top engineers. On the morning of the attack, the Oklahoma had gone to battle stations like the other ships. Her crew raced topside, grabbing 5-inch shells and 50 caliber ammunition belts. Positioned on the outer mooring beside Maryland, her long, thick hull was a perfect target for Japanese Nakajima B-5NK torpedo bombers. A devastating barrage of torpedoes struck her side, tearing through the armoured hull like paper. Though the exact number remains uncertain, between 5 and 7 torpedoes hit during the attack's opening moments. The blow was unprecedented and immediate. Water thundered into her broken hull, and the battleship quickly listed to a terrifying 35 degrees. As it became clear the ship wouldn't recover, the order to abandon was passed. Crew members desperately scrambled through hatches and gun ports. Men poured over the rolling side, plunging into the water. Some swam to Ford Island, while others made for the Maryland to help fight the Japanese aircraft still swarming overhead. Those who reached the island established a casualty collection point and sent uninjured personnel to battle the spreading oil fires. But below, a horrific scene unfolded. More than 450 crewmen remained trapped within the upturned hull, surrounded by darkness and a rising mix of water and oil that was quickly consuming their last air pockets. Trapped inside the sunken hull of the Oklahoma, men frantically tapped out SOS signals with wrenches and hammers, desperately hoping someone would hear their call. In the choking darkness, they waited, unsure if their pleas for help had reached anyone. Julio de Castro, a civilian at Pearl Harbor's naval yard, heard the distinct sounds of clanging from within the capsized ship. Without hesitation, he rallied his fellow yard workers to attempt a rescue. Working alongside Commander E.P. Cranfelder from the Maryland, who had conveniently found a booklet of general plans for the sister ships, De Castro's team used pneumatically powered shipping tools with heavy-duty chisels to break into the hull. Through the night, the still-burning Arizona illuminated their grueling efforts. They worked tirelessly, racing against time and dwindling oxygen supplies. Their persistence paid off as sailors were pulled one by one from their potential tomb. When a rescued sailor mentioned additional trapped men in an adjacent compartment, DeCastro's response was simple and resolute. "We'll get them out." Joe Bulgo, another dedicated dockyard worker, spent an hour working on the bulkhead in rising water. After making 3 cuts, he warned his colleagues to watch their hands before smashing through the wall with a sledgehammer. 10 more men were freed in this heroic moment. By the end of their rescue effort, DeCastro and his brave crew had saved 32 of Oklahoma's trapped sailors. Yet the triumph was bittersweet. Hundreds more would never escape the battleship, which now served as a massive steel sarcophagus. In the aftermath, attention turned to the ship itself. Oklahoma lay firmly on the bottom, her true condition unknown. Damaged sections remained inaccessible, either blocked by the ship's own twisted structure or buried beneath mud, a silent testament to the destruction of that day. By mid-1942, the fate of the Oklahoma seemed sealed. With California and Nevada offering more promising salvage opportunities, Pearl Harbor's limited resources were directed elsewhere. The battleship lay sunken on Battleship Row, her superstructure creating a navigational hazard. The Pacific Bridge Company faced an unprecedented challenge. Oklahoma was completely upside down, making her recovery far more complex than the previous ship salvages. Conventional methods like cofferdams, patches, and pumps were clearly inadequate for such a massive vessel. Their ingenious solution involved an elaborate system of 21 massive righting frames attached to the exposed hull portion. Steel cables stretched across to Ford Island, connecting to powerful winches repurposed from Honolulu tram cars. Electrically powered, these winches would slowly rotate the ship. Preparation was crucial. Divers worked meticulously, closing doors and hatches to create air pockets that would reduce the ship's weight. Fuel and ammunition were systematically removed to lighten the massive 27,500-ton vessel. Thousands of tons of crushed coral were strategically placed under Oklahoma's bow to provide a rolling surface, compensating for the soft mud that had complicated earlier salvage attempts. The entire operation was a testament to engineering brilliance. On March 8th, their carefully designed system was ready to attempt the seemingly impossible task of righting and refloating the sunken battleship. The skilled team from Pacific Bridge Company was prepared to undertake what many had considered completely unachievable. In 1943, the massive Oklahoma battleship began its slow resurrection. Winches and custom-designed cables gradually lifted the vessel, transforming it from a half-sunken wreck to an upright ship. The process was painstakingly deliberate, stretching from March to mid-June, with constant pauses for cable adjustments and repairs. As the ship rose, the full extent of her catastrophic damage became visible. Salvage teams, now veterans of previous recovery efforts, worked meticulously. Huge patches sealed her torn hull, while air-filled pontoons were strapped to her sides to improve buoyancy. By mid-June 1942, they had achieved the impossible. Oklahoma was upright and afloat. Yet the triumph was bittersweet. The once proud battleship was now a dented, rusted hulk, a shadow of her former glory. Her restoration continued when she entered Dry Dock 2 on December 28, 1943, her damaged hull barely clearing the entrance. Crews worked to seal hull breaches, cutting away mangled steel and welding new plates. The most harrowing task awaited the cleaning crews. As they stripped away layers of rotten sludge and oil, they made a grim discovery: the decomposed remains of over 400 crew members. Their work was somewhat eased by the knowledge that Oklahoma was destined for the scrapyard. Systematically, hundreds of tons of machinery were removed. Boilers, computers, generators, guns, and engines were stripped away until nothing remained except a bare hull with 4 empty gun turrets, a final testament to her wartime sacrifice. With her hull patched up, Oklahoma waited out the war in Pearl Harbor, a once powerful warship now idle and destined for the scrapyard. In 1946, she was sold to a shipbreaking firm, but fate had other plans. During a storm the following year, while being towed to San Francisco, the dreadnought broke her tow lines and sank into the cold, crushing depths of the Pacific. Her final resting place remains unknown to this day. On December 7, 1941, USS Arizona was moored directly behind USS Tennessee. As Japanese planes approached, the battleship's crew immediately sprang into action. Crewmen and officers rushed to their stations, securing watertight bulkheads and preparing to defend against the incoming attack. Anti-aircraft weapons blazed. At 8:10 a.m., a pivotal moment would forever change the ship's destiny. A massive 1,560-pound armor-piercing bomb sliced through the deck near the number 2 turret. Penetrating deep into the ship's interior, the bomb detonated with catastrophic results. The explosion ignited the black powder magazine, which in turn set off the larger smokeless powder magazine. The devastating blast ruptured the hull and obliterated the forward sections of the dreadnought. The ship's sturdy hull and armor proved helpless against the internal explosion. Arizona's massive turrets, conning tower, and most of her superstructure collapsed onto the ruined decks. With nothing left to support their weight, the ship sank deeper into the oil-slick waters of Pearl Harbor. The human cost was staggering. 177 crew members perished in the enormous blast, nearly half of the total fatalities that morning. Among the dead were Rear Admiral Isaac Kidd and Arizona's commanding officer, Captain Franklin Van Vulenberg. The moment was captured on film, a testament to the ship's horrific destruction. Ensign Douglas Hine, one of the 334 survivors, would later bear witness to this day of infamy. When the Arizona burned, her devastation was total and absolute. Flames consumed the ship for 2 full days, casting an eerie, ghostly light across Pearl Harbor. The Inferno illuminated the upturned hull of the Oklahoma, where civilian dockyard workers frantically worked to free trapped sailors. Hine, a junior officer who survived the attack, later recounted his harrowing experience. On the bridge, he and 2 others were caught in a violent shaking as flames burst through broken windows. He managed to escape by scrambling through a blown open door, navigating bent and twisted ladders that were almost too hot to touch. By the time the carrier Enterprise pulled in, the Arizona was still burning, its ghastly light casting a silent horror across the ship's deck. The damage was catastrophic. Raising the ship was impossible. Yet a partial salvage effort began, stripping half turrets of their guns and emptying magazines of ammunition and powder. Throughout 1942, sections of the battleship's exposed masts and superstructure were gradually cut away. The turrets were repurposed as shore defense batteries on Oahu. What remained was a ruptured hull, still leaking black, oily tears into Pearl Harbor's blue waters. The human cost was immense. Most of the fallen crew's bodies couldn't be recovered. Those few retrieved were burnt beyond recognition. The Navy declared the rest buried at sea, with the ship serving as their final resting place. In 1962, a monument was established atop the Arizona's wreck, memorializing the lives lost and the sacrifice made that day. Pearl Harbor holds more than just the famous USS Arizona Memorial. On the turquoise waters, the USS Missouri stands as a powerful symbol of both war's beginning and end. Her tall bow now faces the Arizona's wreck, watching over the fallen and the 900 men still entombed within. Known affectionately as the Mighty Mo, this last battleship built by the United States was the site of Japan's final surrender on September 2, 1945. Just across Fort Island sits another sobering memorial to wartime sacrifice, the USS Utah. Less celebrated than the Arizona, her story is no less significant. Commissioned in August 1911, Utah was the second and final Florida-class battleship and the oldest present during the Pearl Harbor attack. By 1931, she had been transformed from a battleship to a target ship, stripped of her main 12-inch guns and reclassified from BB-31 to AG-16. Despite her modified status, Utah was still equipped with numerous anti-aircraft guns for training purposes. On December 7, 1941, 2 torpedoes struck her hull during the initial attack. Unlike other ships that might have survived such damage, Utah's flooding was catastrophic and rapid. The vessel quickly rolled, leaving little time for organized evacuation. While most of her crew managed to escape, the ship ultimately settled upside down on the harbor bottom. Silent testament to the sudden violence of that morning. Positioned between the cruiser Raleigh and cargo ship Tangier, Utah was completely exposed when the waves of torpedo bombers approached. Her fate that day would become a poignant reminder of the human cost of war, even for a ship no longer considered a frontline combatant. During the attack on Pearl Harbor, the USS Utah suffered a devastating blow, with 58 of its crew tragically losing their lives. 54 crew members remained trapped within the wreck, a number that would have been higher if not for the heroic actions of machinist S.A. Szymanski from the USS Raleigh. Hearing tapping from the upturned hull, Szymanski assembled a team and used a cutting torch to create an opening. He and his volunteers managed to rescue Fireman Second Class John B. Vasson from what could have been his final resting place. The ship's recovery would be a long and challenging process. In 1942, preliminary dives revealed the Utah firmly embedded in the seafloor's muddy bottom. The wreck appeared stable enough to begin retrieving valuable items. Divers, armed with torches, cut holes in the exposed hull sections and started removing thousands of rounds of anti-aircraft ammunition. Progress was painfully slow. The team navigated through claustrophobic corridors and twisted metal, facing constant danger. Even in pumped-out compartments, deadly hydrogen sulfide gas posed a significant threat to those without respirators. By February, the increasing risks forced an end to retrieval efforts. The Utah, once a proud battleship that had participated in the American occupation of Veracruz and transported President-elect Herbert Hoover, was left to rust in Pearl Harbor's salty waters for a year before salvage attempts resumed. Following the successful salvage of the Oklahoma, hopes were high that Utah's recovery would be simpler. The salvage division had leftover equipment and valuable experience from their previous operation. They began attaching the same massive riding frames used to raise the Oklahoma and set up an impressive array of winches and electric motors at Fort Island. Preparations took 13 months, but ultimately, the effort would be in vain. The Utah was wedged so deeply into the seabed that recovery seemed impossible. The salvage operation at Pearl Harbor was a monumental effort that stretched over 2 years following the devastating attack. After the initial assault that sank 5 battleships and damaged numerous other vessels, the recovery team faced incredible challenges. The Utah, in particular, proved nearly impossible to raise, mired in the sticky harbor bottom mud. Despite intense strain from the winches, the ship only sank deeper, resembling a truck, hopelessly bogged down. By March 15, 1944, the team was forced to halt salvage attempts on the Utah. Final dives to stabilize the ship's hull marked the end of an extraordinarily difficult recovery mission. The entire operation was a testament to human determination and skill, involving over 5,000 dives and more than 20,000 hours underwater. Salvage workers confronted unimaginably dangerous conditions. They navigated in complete darkness, relying on memory of ship blueprints and rudimentary communication through telephone cables. Wearing heavy, cumbersome diving suits, they risked being cut by the vessel's jagged, shredded interiors. Topside workers weren't spared either, battling poisonous fumes while wearing respirators and gas masks. Inside the damaged ships, workers waded through rotten, oily sludge to recover fallen comrades and restore vessels to fighting condition. Their heroic efforts paid off. All but 2 ships were ultimately raised, with most returning to service before the war's end. Japan's military had gravely miscalculated, believing the attack would permanently disable the US Pacific Fleet. The Imperial forces failed to understand the resilience and determination of American military personnel. Despite the devastating initial attack, Pearl Harbor would not only recover, but become a crucial base for the United States Pacific Campaign. What the Japanese intended as a knockout blow instead became a catalyst for American resolve and eventual victory. When the USS Enterprise pulled in less than 48 hours after the attack, she was able to refuel and resupply, returning to sea in just 7 hours. This was possible because the Japanese had failed to destroy Pearl's crucial fuel, oil, and provision storage facilities. America responded with a whole new generation of battleships and a fleet of powerful aircraft carriers that would hand Imperial Japan defeat after defeat. Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, likely never said the famous quote attributed to him about awakening a sleeping giant that came from the 1970 movie Tora Tora Tora. He was actually depressed by the attack, finding the lack of a formal war declaration deeply regrettable. Over the coming years, he was forced to watch his own fleets turn to scrap metal and a generation of young Japanese men sink into the depths. Eventually, he was hunted down and killed by American fighter planes while touring his forces in the South Pacific. The Pearl Harbor salvage story reveals some unusual ironies. The attack had definitively demonstrated air power's dominance and the battleship's obsolescence. The Arizona was torn apart by a devastating bomb, and the Nevada was left a smoking wreck despite being underway and firing. Yet, countless man-hours were spent attempting to recover ships from a bygone era. This attack dragged the USA, Australia, the United Kingdom, and many other countries into a conflict that would claim over 6.5 million soldiers, sailors, and airmen, wound countless more, and kill millions of civilians. Japan had attacked with Cape torpedo bombers and D-3A dive bombers. Within 3 years, America would strike back with flying monsters capable of carrying payloads more than 18 times as heavy. The conflict ultimately produced an existential weapon so terrible that we continue to grapple with its implications today. The salvage crew at Pearl Harbor accomplished something extraordinary, working tirelessly to resurrect ships that seemed beyond hope. Vice Admiral Homer Wallen, who led the salvage division starting in January 1942, captured the essence of their mission perfectly. "Enough cannot be said in praise of the salvage crew," he declared. They worked with remarkable determination, quickly realizing that their efforts were surpassing even the most optimistic expectations. Today, only 2 ships stand as silent witnesses to their incredible achievement: the Arizona and the Utah. All other vessels have been either scrapped or repurposed. The USS Nevada, for instance, was eventually used in Cold War nuclear testing. These ships completed their service to the nation and now exist primarily in memory. Many of the brave workers who endured horrific conditions and endless hours have since passed away. Yet their legacy endures. The story of how they salvaged Pearl Harbor remains a powerful testament to human resilience and capability in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. What makes their work truly remarkable is that it was never about glory or recognition. Like the war itself, it was simply a job that needed doing, no matter how difficult or unpleasant. Their commitment went far beyond professional duty. It was a profound demonstration of human spirit and collective effort in a moment of national crisis. The legacy of the Pearl Harbor salvage crews teaches us that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to rebuild and rise again. If you believe it's important to keep these stories of resilience alive, please help us reach more people by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support ensures that the history of these brave men is never forgotten. Thank you for watching.